What's up, friends? It's Haley, aka Bird,
and Randy,
and you're tuning in to the Give 'em the Bird podcast.
This podcast is all about challenging what it means to be healthy and fit. It's about celebrating sustainable behavior change and non-scale victories.
And most importantly, it's about giving the bird to the diet industry and societal expectations of body size. Why? Well, because at the end of the day, you have an entire life to live that does not require your body look a certain way.
Thanks for tuning in.
Now let's give 'em the bird.
All right, welcome back, everyone. This week, we are talking about something that came up during the first round of the GTB Academy, which I was a part of, a 14-week program that Haley put together. And we all kind of had the same question we discovered, and that was, what if after this process, I still want to lose weight? And I think we were all kind of afraid to admit that that was in the back of our minds, but it's something that we were all thinking. And so I wanted to dive into this a little bit more with Haley and kind of get her thoughts on, what if somebody is ready to ditch the diet mentality, to make peace with food, to, move outside of a desire to lose weight specifically, but in the back of their mind, they still have that nagging, what if I want to lose weight? Like, how do you address that, or what does that bring up for you?
Yeah. It's so funny because just this week, I had two different students who brought up this concept, and I knew we're going to be doing an episode on this. Obviously, I didn't promote it to the students, but it is something that I think is very common, but it's not often talked about in the anti-diet or the intuitive eating space, because we're supposed to be so hard and fast, no weight loss, drop that desire ASAP before you can move on. But I want everyone to know, first and foremost, if you are working towards those things that you mentioned, Randy, ditching the diet mentality, working on becoming an intuitive eater, and gaining body respect and all these things, moving for more than just weight loss, but you still have this but what if this thing still might help me lose weight? Or ooh, why am I thinking that? That's bad. It is so freaking normal. And I know even for myself as a practitioner in this space, someone who works with people every day, I still catch myself thinking this sometimes. And for me, what comes up is I always catch myself being I freaking know better. I know better than to feel this way. I know better than to, want to have these desires. And so it's a lot of this imposter syndrome that comes up. But ultimately, what I like to tell people is that your thoughts and your actions are two totally separate things, right? So being able to catch it and notice it is really important, but you don't have to beat yourself up about it, because I think it is such a common experience for a lot of people who are new to this space or who even have been in this space for a while now.
Yeah, I think that was one of the points. We talked about this a lot in GTB Academy, but you said that this line that stuck with all of us so well, and it was a thought is just a thought. So in the context of what we were talking about, the I want to lose weight thought is just a thought. As long as you are not modifying your actions, so restricting your calories or exercising extra in order to achieve that thought, then it's just a thought. And so that was such a relief for me to hear, because going into the program, and not any fault of yours, this was just my own, I was just I'm going to come out of this and I am going to be an intuitive eater, and I'm going to love my body, and I'm not going to have any second, any other questions, and I won't look back, and that's just going to be it. And that's not the case. That's never going to be the case. It's always going to be a lifelong journey to, there's not going to be a destination, I guess.
Right.
You're always going to be working on those things. And so, I think we'd be ridiculous to assume that life would not be easier, if we were in a smaller body or something. Of course it would, because that's what society, idolizes. So I think that's a totally natural thing to want, but you're right. It's just the actions that come with that and the motivations behind your actions that matter.
Yeah.
Another thing that I have caught myself thinking in this process is is this anti-diet culture stuff just an excuse for me to like eat whatever I want and not exercise as regularly? Which is crazy town, because that just goes to show what a chokehold the diet industry has on us.
Totally.
Um, so I definitely, kind of go back and forth in my mind sometimes about it too. But I know deep down that that's not the case. But it's just that diet culture creeping back in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, this like that inner thought of, is this just an excuse? Like there are points in the process, and I think you kind of mentioned it in our first episode of the season. I think you referred to it as like rebellious eating or rebellion eating, this idea of like entitlement eating,
Hmm.
right? Where it's like, I'm not, it's part of making peace with food where, we give ourselves unconditional permission to eat. But sometimes we can swing all the way over to this other place where it's like, because of all of the people who have maybe once told us, like, you should never eat donuts, you're going to gain weight, you're going to die if you do that, like, whatever it is, we're not eating the donuts because that's what our body wants and that's what really sounds good to us. We're eating it out of rebellion and out of entitlement. And it's kind of like a big fuck you. Sorry, F you. Wow. Birdie girl. It's a big. I know damn well I'm not going to edit that out. That's staying in here. So I don't
I
even
was
know
going to say,
why.
have you ever censored yourself on here?
No, never. That would be so weird. I would not be myself if I did that. But sometimes this entitlement eating can show up as like, I am, it almost is like a bit of an excuse, but it makes sense why it's happening, because it's like we are rebelling against all of those people, and at the same time we're not actually honoring our body. So I think that it definitely can happen that way for some people, but I also think that your thought around it of like, is this just an, like, I think that that's a common theme in society too, is like this anti-diet, this intuitive eating is just an excuse to eat whatever you want and get fat and sassy and not worry at all about your health. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yep.
think
Yep.
that's totally a common thread in society, or like people that are against anti-diet or against intuitive eating. And so it makes sense why that pops up as a narrative in your mind when sometimes when you think about it.
This makes me think of one thing. I think I brought it up in GTB Academy, one of our first few weeks. I think my desire to lose weight is not necessarily based on like the size of my body, but the confidence and how I felt about myself when I was at a smaller size. And so my goal moving forward is not to change my body to get back to that, but to just change my mindset so that I
Mhm.
still have that same level of confidence and appreciation for my body no matter what size I'm at, because that's going
Yes.
to carry and stick with me as my body changes throughout life, because it's going to change a million more times.
Mhm.
Whereas, if the only thing that makes me feel that way is weight loss, like that's so short term and unattainable in a lot of cases and is not gonna be a lifelong thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's more about improving my relationship with my body to get that confidence back.
Yeah, I remember when you brought that up, and there was another participant or another GTB Academyer who that really stuck with them. Like that had a huge impact on them. And I love the way you put it too. It's like, and I think we talk about it sometimes in terms of when we let go of these body ideals for ourselves, it's not just about letting go of the fact that I'm never going to be in that smaller body. If it was just about that, it would be freaking easy. What it's about is letting go of all of these things that I thought a smaller body would provide me with, right? So for a lot of people, it's
Yes.
like a relationship, the job. For some people, it is the confidence, all of these different things. But I think the way that you phrased it is such a beautiful way of reminding us that, like, we actually don't have to let go of those things. We can have those things in this bigger, hopefully healthier body, right? And so I really, really, really love that goal of yours to focus on accepting my body and having confidence and loving it in this body that it's in, reminding myself that I can have those things without changing a pound on the scale or an inch on my waist. but that can be a really hard concept for people to get to. And so that was another reason, the fact that you were able to like get there on your own. In the back of my mind, I was like, yay, oh my gosh, this is huge growth. Like, I think it's so powerful that you came to that conclusion without it being prompted. And it really showed an area of true growth for you in your relationship with your body.
Yeah. And I think you know, this is another one of those like gray areas we've talked about too, or it can be
Totally.
like, I think going into GTB or kind of exploring just the GTB lifestyle, uh it's like the goal of weight loss is bad. Like, you know,
Hmm.
that's off the table. And it's like, well, you know, for some people doing it in a healthy way, that might be their gray area, and that's okay
Hmm.
too.
Totally. Yeah. Because I think that, diet culture has this like weight loss is the best option. Weight loss is the answer. If your BMI is over a certain point, like you need to lose weight. If you want to get healthy, you have to lose weight. Like those are that's the extreme side of diet culture. And then I think there's also this like extreme side of anti-diet culture, like what you just mentioned, where it's like, we can't even say weight loss. Like, don't even talk about it. Don't even let people
Right.
think that it's an option anymore. And I think that leads, and I've experienced this myself. I remember like back towards the end of season 1 of GTB, I started having these thoughts of like, why am I feeling guilty for supporting people and improving their body image while they still have this idea of wanting to lose weight? Because for the longest time, I was like, if someone wants to lose weight, don't send them to me. Like, I don't want to meet with them. And I think that was like the very extreme anti-diet culture. And so I found myself in this place of like, why am I feeling guilty about having these thoughts? Or why am I feeling like I shouldn't be doing these things? And I think that's another extreme. It's the exact opposite end of the spectrum as that diet culture, right? Is that extreme anti-diet culture. And again, I just have to come back to this idea of like thoughts are different from behaviors. And you're exactly right though,
Mhm.
that, and we talked about this in a previous episode, of healthy behaviors looks different for everyone, right? We talked about it in the context of macro counting, right? Like you were sharing how your husband can still macro count and like it's not obsessive. Like there's a healthy approach that he takes to it. There's other reasons behind it. But for you, you got away from that macro counting because like it was almost impossible to not be obsessive. And I think it can be the same way with weight loss. Again, we're never going to sit here and promote weight loss, but I am at a place now where I can support you in adopting health promoting behaviors, whether or not those lead to weight loss or not. I might encourage you to set weight loss as your motivation on the back burner, but I'm not going to shame you or guilt you into thinking that something is wrong with you because those thoughts are still there, which is the feeling that I felt with this, again, extreme side of anti diet culture that we sometimes hear about.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's so tricky because it's like, you know, what's the motivation behind wanting to lose the
Totally.
weight? In almost all cases, at least in my experience, it's, if you really dig deep, it's about how other people perceive you.
Mm,
You know, if everybody walked around with blindfolds on, and if you know, your doctor says everything checks out, then really, what does your weight or body size matter, you know?
mm-hmm.
Um, but again, it goes back to, like I said, you can't deny that living in a smaller body, it's just easier for people being
Right.
out in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
so I don't you definitely, I just, you can't fault anybody for wanting that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because of that, like weight bias and weight stigma and weight discrimination that our society has, I would never blame anyone for seeing the benefit in changing their body size if they lived in a larger body. Absolutely not. And again, I think that's where, like, as somebody who lives in a straight size, thin size body, like, I feel like it's my job to advocate for those people, right? Because it's like,
Hmm.
for one, they're probably fucking tired of advocating for themselves and they don't get listened to like somebody like me does. It is interesting though, because I have worked with a student recently who, she went through my 4 week intuitive eating course at the university where I work. She's a student. It's free, which is great. If you are a student listening, check it out. But I also meet with her one on one. And after our session, after the 4 weeks ended, we met up and she was sharing how she was talking with another one of the attendees who happened to be her friend. And she, the other attendee, her friend, was kind of saying, like, you might still lose weight by eating intuitively. Like, it might be a thing for you because she's been dealing with, she has gained some weight, but she also has like an extensive history of disordered eating and body image concerns that didn't get brought up until she was referred to me for weight loss by a healthcare provider. And so
Oh my
this,
gosh.
like, yeah, within the last, year or so, this has, oh no, it's been more than a year, I guess, year and a half or 2 years, all of this has kind of unraveled as, the first time she sat in my office and I was like, tell me what brought you in. Oh, a healthcare provider mentioned, I had gained some weight and they were interested, they brought up like weight loss to me. I just kind of leaned in. I was like, how do you feel about your weight? And she was like, I wasn't concerned about it until they brought something up. And so this just like opened up this discussion around like body image and intuitive eating and health at every size and all of that. And so, fast forward about a year post this 4-week program, she's having this conversation with a fellow attendee who says, you might still lose weight if you practice intuitive eating. That still could be a possibility. And her response was, in order for me to heal, I have to take weight loss completely off the table. Like, I cannot even have this, potentially, this could happen on the table anymore because she said it was just, it's so hard for her to latch onto that and ride with it, and she's doing a lot of work. She's working with me. She has a therapist. She's in like a group therapy program as well. But I thought that was really, really interesting and kind of like another side of it. Like, I think that there are some people who they like the weight loss is so ingrained in them and it has caused so much harm that they just completely do have to take it off the table for them. And so I also want to acknowledge that and recognize that for some people that might be what's best for them and only you can make that decision for yourself.
Yeah, I think I thought about that a lot when I was working as a pharmacist for the university. I would meet with people with diabetes, and we would talk about, carbohydrates and things. And for some people, it was an all or nothing. They had to, if they were going to restrict in some way, which that's a whole nother topic, diabetes um,
Right.
and GTB stuff. But
Yes.
if they wanted to limit eating candy, they had to completely have it out of their house because having it available, they weren't able to kind of limit that on their own. And so I can see
Hmm.
how, having weight loss on the table would make it so difficult to like not have that affect their thoughts and their actions.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
how do you recommend people like check in with themselves and kind of figure out what are my motivations for what I'm doing, for what I'm eating and my
Yes.
movement to things?
Yeah, because I think it can be really hard to know, like, what is my, because you mentioned at one point, like, our motivation or our intention, behind doing something is really what's more important than the behavior or the action itself. I think there's kind of two questions that I bring up. One is, in the event that no matter what I ate or how I moved or whatever this thing is, regardless of how often I did it, if I knew that it would never, ever, ever change the size and shape of my body, would I continue to do this thing? Like, I think that question, it's like if I knew that, training for a half marathon or training for whatever would never change my size, the size and shape of my body, would I still want to do it? Because I think that gets to, am I being motivated by wanting to lose weight, or is my biggest motivator that I enjoy it and I look forward to it and it helps me manage my stress and it helps me improve my sleep, or, fill in the blank. But if I only want to eat this food or move this way or do this thing or whatever it might be in order to change the size and shape of my body, like if that's the loudest thing, the answer to that original question would probably be no, I wouldn't do it. And I think this question is like a mind-blowing experience for a lot of people. The amount of students that I have
Yeah.
brought this up to, yeah, and they've been like, no, I would not go to this HIIT class, or like, for some people, no, I wouldn't weightlift. And this particular student who I had mentioned before, this was one of the questions after the summer when she was out of the state for the summer, but when we got back together at the beginning of the semester, she kind of had this breakthrough moment of she knew that her relationship with food was kind of wishy-washy and like her body was. But I asked her that question because I could just sense like something feels off. There's some sort of hesitation about getting back into movement. And I asked her that, and she was like, no, I wouldn't actually lift weights in the way that I'm lifting weights. But yet we had spent the entire previous year trying to get into the habit of lifting weights. And so I think it can be like, nobody ever asks us that. Like, we might ask, like, what's your motivation for doing something? And we might say, like, oh, I'd like to lose some weight, but I also enjoy it and it improves my energy. But if we frame it as a way of, if you knew this wasn't going to change your body, would you still do it? All of a sudden, we realize that in our mind, we enjoy it because we think it's going to lead to the weight loss, or it gives us energy because we think that it's leading to the weight loss, right? And so it totally is just like a mind fuck moment where it's like, no, I wouldn't eat this way. I wouldn't move this
Yes.
way. Or maybe the answer is yes, I would continue to do this. Awesome. Can we set weight loss on the back burner and really focus on those other motivators for wanting to get active or wanting to do this thing, you know? So there's different ways that you can work with that. But that question is like, it's an awesome question to pose, and I love using that.
Yeah, it's such an eye-opening thing for like, I know when we talked about it in GTB, like that was a big moment for me. I was like, gosh, there were so many things I was doing that, I mean, there is no way in hell you could get me to eat microwaved egg whites just because if it wasn't right. Ew, I was doing that
Yuck.
so much when I was counting macros because I needed my protein. Ugh,
Hmm.
gross. So
Yes.
yeah.
That is, yeah, I'm trying to think of like the things that, even things like, I remember when I was doing CrossFit really regularly and my body hurt. Like I had really bad like hip pain and like shoulder and chest pain. But I went, we were going like 4 or so days a week, and I was putting my all into every single workout. And I think that if I had asked myself this question back then, this was like pre-GTB, if I had asked myself that, I think my answer would have been no. If this isn't going to change my body, I'm not going to keep going because my body fucking hurts. Like my body hurts.
Right.
I don't want to do it. It doesn't sound good to me. So, P.S. If anybody can hear my dogs, there's Murph and Lola saying hello on this episode.
Hey guys.
Yes. But yeah, so yeah, I can pinpoint moments in my life where if I would have asked myself that question, the answer probably would have been no. And I maybe would have shifted my own perspective a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. Well, thank you all for tuning in this week. Hopefully this reflection on weight loss is helpful for you in finding the gray area in your life and in your experience with weight loss. And let us know if you have thoughts, questions. We'd love to hear from you on Give 'em the Bird on Instagram, and we'll talk to you next week.